All right, I think we're live.
How's it going?
Pretty good, I think. Although we
Well, I'm
might
happy to
not.
be on the Shandy.
The Shandy, yeah. I mean, I think we're good. Let me just double check this real quick because we did have some issues.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me delete this old thing because that's wrong. But this new thing is good, so let me keep it. It should hopefully. Does it have the same link?
YouTube's tough.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm having a hard time here. Okay, so we are good here.
Yeah, still shows are going live on my end.
Yep. I just needed to change the link is all. But you know, I fixed
Well, excellent.
it.
I'm here. I'm ready to go. Ready to get talking about some cool things that the news doesn't want to talk about.
Yeah, well, not even just that. I think it's the main reason why I said, you know what, screw this. I'm starting this channel is because I thought I'm tired of reading all this stuff that makes me just go, what the hell? Like, this makes absolutely zero sense. And the number one example of this, I think, was how MSNBC covered some of these riots. Like, this dude is literally standing in front of a burning building, and he goes, this is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly. Then who set fire to the building? Like, if a building gets set on fire, that's pretty unruly. Like, it's one thing to be, like... It's one thing to be like, oh, my sports team won and people are out in the streets. It's another thing to burn a building to the ground. That takes effort. I don't know.
No, it's incredible too. This just isn't like some small building. This, if you look at the whole clip, and even you can kind of see in the picture, it's a large building and it's a large fire too.
Yeah, I think it bothers me so much because how do you not look at this and go, like, there's got to be some cognitive dissonance that you feel like you're like, something's not right here. There's a building burning. How can this be a peaceful protest? I don't know. And even if you say, okay, well, there's a bunch of people peacefully protesting, but there's riots associated with it everywhere, like almost everywhere, not exactly everywhere, but almost everywhere where you have these protests, you have massive riots as well, and lawlessness and robbing and looting and assault and in some cases murder. And this isn't just a couple people. Like, this is at least a dozen or more cases of people being straight up killed because of these riots. And I'm just that's inherently not peaceful. And it really bothered me. And we can sit here and we could talk about how it doesn't matter whether or not George Floyd should have been killed, right? Like was it? Does his past really matter when it comes to whether or not he should be killed? I don't think so. It doesn't really matter. The guy shouldn't have gotten killed. It is coming out that he probably wasn't the nicest person out there. Okay, fair, but that doesn't mean he should have gotten a knee to the neck and you could argue about, well, he had drugs in his system. A knee to the neck is definitely a contributing factor, especially when you're in a high stress situation like getting arrested. Regardless of all of that, you can agree that this was wrong, and you can still look at the response to it and go, this is also wrong. And I do not see that anywhere in media, mainstream media, in newspaper, TV, online sources. It's only people like underground that are talking about it. And I'm tired of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And mainstream media does a very good job at portraying the protests and riots as peaceful. And there are some protests that I've seen where the biggest thing that happened was someone lit a little bit of trash on fire in a park. You know, a small fire. Wasn't a lot of huge like vandalism and stuff, and in that case that's relatively peaceful. Now, personally, I think there should be no vandalism if you're trying to protests, but to give the benefit of the doubt, there are going to be a couple people causing trouble, couple criminal opportunists, etc.
Okay.
But what the MSNBC guys talking about here was pretty much the burning of city blocks and in Minneapolis and thousands of people taking part in it. So to say that this is, to quote him, this is mostly a protest, it is not generally speaking unruly, is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Absolutely stupid, but that's what they do. That is their narrative.
I think part of what bothers me so much about this stuff is I actually have some training in being in doing journalism, and it's not hard to get this stuff right. It really isn't. It takes effort for people to say, like, when a situation is there are protests, and you could say the vast majority, like let's say 1,000 people protest and 800 people or 900 people are protesting peacefully. They're waving signs, there's chanting, but there's no rocks being thrown. They're not getting in cops' faces. They're doing what you would normally see with protests. And then you've got 100 people, right? Which is, again, a minority, a very small minority in terms of percentage of that overall group that are breaking through windows and destroying things. That is, how can you characterize that as peaceful? I mean, and also I think the point to all this is they're not focusing at all on any of the riots. They're glossing over the riots to say, oh, but the protesters. And people are going, but hang on, people are dying, buildings are being destroyed, cities are burning to the ground, and you don't care. Like, we're not here to talk about that. We're not here to talk about buildings burning to the ground. We're here to talk about how one guy got killed unjustly, as opposed to all these other people that are getting killed. We don't care about them.
Yeah, where's the justice for them?
Right. So the basic gist of this stream is we're going to start going through stuff like this that made us just go, you know what? I'm tired of it. We're going to start a YouTube channel. So let's see. What are some of these things here that we can go through? Okay. I got one. Hang on. Let me get this on screen here. Look at that. So we've got Time Magazine. Okay. We've got, this was on June 13th. Time Magazine said physicians have joined a protest in cities across the country, and an open letter signed by 1,200 health professionals says protests should not be shut down over fears of COVID-19 transmission. Next, though, they go, and this is literally 30 minutes later, hundreds of far-right protesters defy COVID-19 restrictions to demonstrate in London.
So this is one of the worst. I mean, this is bad because I did notice when I had first seen this that it was the same date, but the fact that it's literally a half an hour apart.
Yes. It's.
I mean, which one is it? What side are you going to take, Time Magazine?
I mean, you could argue, okay, well, they're just trying to present both sides. They're saying, oh, okay, so they're saying that physicians are doing this. They're not taking a side. They're just saying that that physicians are doing this, and that they're basically, the argument is they're just describing what's happening. The problem is stuff called there's lies by structure, lies by omission, where if you inundate somebody with nonstop coverage of protesting is bad, like we've had for what? Like how many weeks prior to George Floyd's death? We had at least 2 weeks or so of protests that were roundly condemned by physicians. Like there's pictures. I'm gonna go see if I can try to find it of health workers like standing in front of protesters like in a line. Hang on.
Yeah.
Here we go. Health workers standing in front of protesters. Yeah, counter-protesting health workers, which is interesting. Like, I thought these health workers are so busy that they'd have no time for this stuff, but apparently they have enough time to protest. Here, let me get a picture.
I guess so.
This was a very I just have to get it on the stream. This is a very commonly cited picture. Everyone will probably recognize it if I could get it.
So I'm not a huge. I don't really know how much like publications like Time Magazine, New York Times, etc. I don't know how they manage their Twitters, where if it's probably just one person posting. There's like a person who finalizes, looks at it, and posts it. I can't imagine that they have an interface where it's just a bunch of journalists uploading their own tweets. I think that'd be chaotic. So
yes.
when the person posts the message about over 1,200 physicians saying that the protests are good, the protests are safe, posts, you know, protesters of another source, far right or whatever, and they're defying the thing. I mean, does that guy not think that, hey, I just posted about a letter saying that protesting is fine? But no, they just posted it anyway, and there it is.
Yep. So here is that picture. I found it. Basically, I mean, this is, these people are trying to protest, and they're not even walking. They're in their cars. They're social distancing. They're following the rules, and they're still being told that we're killing grandma, right? And we have to stand in front of these vehicles. Don't let them protest, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think
and from what I hear, a lot of the medical profession is you know, working long hours and stuff like that. I mean, if I was going to a hospital and working long shifts, I'd be going home, getting some rest, making sure I clean well, and then, you know, getting ready to do it again the next day. I guess this medical professor just says, I'm going to take my free time and start trouble, cause, you know, do whatever he's doing there, blocking protesters. I
guess so. Well, and that's a whole nother thing. We could get into coronavirus, but that's a bit of a tangent. I think that coronavirus is just it was something that was happening to everyone, and then all of a sudden the rules changed for some people, but not everybody. So let's go in and
how's that fair?
Well, and we're not even going to worry about fairness so much as just think about these messages you're being sent. We're being told, thank you, by the way, Big Hair, for the subscribe. I appreciate it. Think about what we're being told. And I'm not trying to sit here as like tinfoil hat about this. I'm thinking about this from the perspective of someone who has made videos and written articles for like I know how to do this stuff. I'm being concerned at the messages that were being sent that are being put out in the mainstream news about how it's okay to have a double standard. Like, this obviously is the case. So they're not even blinking when you go from hang on, let me go ahead and bring that other one back up again. When they say, sure. when Time Magazine says this stuff, right? Let me make it smaller. Sorry, I have.
Yeah, it's just it's so weird, and the thing is, I don't think that all these people are just dumb. I think that they are just playing ignorance. I mean,
I disagree. I think that this is, it's not ignorance, it's not malice either. I think these people think, you know, the phrase the right side of history. I think journalists and politicians are not coming from this from a perspective of we're the bad guys. I mean, who does that? Who has throughout history been like, yes, I'm the bad guy? No, everyone always thinks they're the good guy. Everyone, even the villains throughout history, thought they were doing good things. They thought they were fighting evil, right? So,
but don't they just think that, hey, you know, my narrative is conflicting right now? Don't they realize that, or do you think that they're just being?
No. So it depends on how much they're into stuff like, it depends on how much they're into stuff like critical theory. If they're really deep into critical theory, and there's all kinds of stuff like that's real deep philosophical digging, like real dry reading type stuff which, by the way, if you're interested, check out James Lindsay on Twitter. He was one of those guys that did the hoax papers. Definitely check him out. He's very good at breaking down critical theory, which is the philosophical basis for all this craziness that we're seeing. If they're into critical theory, they're going to say, I don't care that it conflicts because it's my narrative versus your narrative, and my narrative I've deemed to be correct, and I have to fight for my narrative. If they're not steeped in critical theory, they're likely more they're more centrist, but they still think, for example, they think that the United States was a nation founded on the backs of slaves, and that we need to do what we can to right that wrong, etc. Totally forgetting that we fought a civil war over this, and then and you can go in deeper and deeper into it. And to them, it's less about the contradictions. The contradictions don't catch them quite as much because they're more concerned about the supposed injustices of these groups, and they think that those injustices are valid enough to warrant doing things that normally they think you shouldn't do. So like, for example, this coronavirus stuff. Here, hang on. Let me address the chat real quick. So, Big Hair was saying he would Hitler. We've already made it there. We have been. Oh, I'm sorry. I accidentally muted myself. We've been streaming for 10 minutes. We've already talked about Hitler. That's got to be a YouTube record. It's got to be a record.
Hey, YouTube, what's going on?
Yeah. Hey, Susan Wojcicki, or however you say your last name. But anyway, so he's like, Hitler genuinely believed he was saving the Germans. Well, yes, he thought he was saving the Reich. Although at the end of the war, he thought that the Germans weren't worthy of saving, which is why he was like, burn it all to the ground, take it all with me kind of thing. If I can't have it, nobody can. And Jacob Schmidt says, why do they think like this? Are you referring to those who are steeped in critical theory, or those that aren't? Because I think the why is a big difference.
It is a big difference.
Because the people who aren't steeped in critical theory, they think this way because they think this way because they you watch historical movies, or you go to school and you learn about slavery, you learn about Jim Crow, you hear about people being racist on Twitter, you hear about all these bad things that have happened to black people throughout history, which is all true. Like, nobody here is saying that slavery didn't happen, or that Jim Crow wasn't
we're not denying it. We're not exactly.
Yeah, so they think that it's like an eye for an eye kind of thing, or maybe more concisely, it's more like they think that this community is owed something because so much was taken from them historically.
Right.
Big Hair says,
and that
the critical theorists can think they can remake everyone into their own image. Well, yes and no. They think that yes, kind of, but they don't.
I'd say kind of, yeah.
They don't also care, really. They don't care, because to them everything is like, the thing about critical theory is so weird is you've got this. They've broken everybody down into groups. Like, this is like intersectionality. Yes, but once you get past, they believe in the blank slate. That's true, but once you get past, it doesn't matter what's going to happen if you repent, or like let's say, for example, you become a full-fledged critical theorist. That will always devolve back into more division. Like, let's say everyone on this planet became a critical theorist and believed these things, and believed about, like for example, intersectional feminism is derived from critical theory. There's all these groups that are defined by a certain characteristic, like skin color, sexuality, gender, all this stuff, right? Even if you agree with the critical theorists, there has to be conflict. There always has to be conflict, because that's the definition of their theory. Their definition of their theory is that there are there are only narratives that conflict with one another for power. So there will always be people claiming that they are being oppressed because the current narrative is in power, and that the only way to fight that narrative is to gain power themselves. So even, let's say, even in the utopia that critical theorists want, where white supremacy is destroyed, in quotation marks, all that stuff, right? Everything happens that they want, there will still be issues because the very nature of their theory is such that there has to be conflict because it's defined on conflict. It doesn't exist. Like, the only thing that exists are power dynamics. But anyway, that's a bit of a... We've gone off the rails just a little bit.
I mean, it's good to explain that because you're looking at those people and you try to understand, because one of the reasons, like you said, why you wanted to create this channel was because you're seeing a lot of these critical theorists put their garbage out on mainstream media, and you're like, how can they think like this? It's good to kind of gather a base of how they're thinking.
I agree. So do you want to keep going with some of this other stuff? Want to find?
Sure, man.
Because we got a Discord channel full of these things. So let's do this. Let's start talking about the can you screenshot the number 3 point? Number 4, the mayor.
Can I screenshot it?
Yeah, so I could put it up. Sorry, this is the issue with how I'm doing this. But yeah, I agree that going over some of the basic stuff of this is important. It just gets boring really fast. Like, there's a lot of people I know personally that don't agree with a lot of these things, and they're kind of like they're. I don't know. I guess you could say they haven't been red-pilled on this stuff, but they say they're like, I don't agree with these things, but then you try to explain, but then they agree with other things, and you're like, well, this all comes from the same theory, and they just kind of start, their eyes gloss over, and I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a terrible explainer. But Big Hair says, hey, did you hear that Google deleted Winston Churchill? I did not hear about that. I want to see.
They deleted Winston Churchill?
How do you delete Winston Churchill? I mean, they just memory hole him 1984 style? Winston Churchill. Let's
possible. See. I do remember hearing something about Winston Churchill was creating a fuss in the UK.
Well, yeah, because
I didn't look too much into it. Is it because of this whole movement?
Probably, which is bizarre in and of itself. Yeah, okay, so if you type in Prime Minister of UK, right, you go to the top, so if you go ahead and Google that. At the top it says United Kingdom Prime Ministers, and then it's got Boris Johnson, Theresa May, David Cameron, right, all the way back through history. But you get to Winston Churchill, and he's just, there's no picture there. Also, interestingly enough, because he served twice, he was from 1940 to 1945, and then from 51 to 55, right? They had just totally wiped out that he was from 1940 to 1945. Like, the reason why we remember him. They've only listed 1951 to 1955. That is bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad. And
why? I mean, okay, so maybe it's a technical glitch. I doubt it, though. That seems a bit convenient.
Nah.
Consider like the timing
way
of that.
Too convenient.
The timing of that is a bit suspect. I mean, stuff like that does happen. Links die, and so on.
No, yeah. And the thing is too, like, I see, some people you look up 1 month and then the next month and there's a completely different image in there. So it seems like if that happens, the link gets replaced relatively quickly. The fact that Winston Churchill, perhaps the most iconic prime minister in all of UK's history,
at least for an outsider, to Americans,
and then, the fact that he doesn't have a photo, and the fact that he's been causing a bit of, his memory has been causing a bit of controversy. That's.
I don't understand.
I don't know what to say about that.
So did you get that
So number 4 screenshot's up for you. Yep.
All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and post this on the stream real quick. So let me just go ahead and change this picture. All right. Almost there.
I'm reading that, Big Hair. A couple years ago, he watched it real time as Google changed. Oh, so he watched it himself in real time as Google changed the definition of fascism in their dictionary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's totally possible. I mean, we just had. Do
you have the?
I do have
the
it
racism. I was gonna say, do you have the racism screenshot?
I don't. If you could find that for me, that'd be great. I'll start talking about this. So everybody,
okay.
It's been impossible to miss the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle, right? It has been all over the news. At least it's been all over Twitter. Not necessarily been all over the news. It's been on Fox News, I know, because I've seen some Tucker Carlson segments on it that were actually pretty humorous. But let's see. So Mayor Jenny Durkan, who is the mayor of Seattle, she retweeted Donald Trump talking about the Chaz, LARP City, yeah, pretty much. The Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, #Chaz, is not a lawless wasteland of anarchist insurrection. It is a peaceful expression of our community's collective grief and their desire to build a better world. Given his track record, it's not hard to believe that Trump... Oh, I can't read the rest of it. I've lost it. Hang on a second. I'll read the rest. I mean, this is pretty... You get the basic gist already, though, because she's already deflected from Chaz and is already back to, Orange Man bad, you know? Like, this is totally cool. So let's see here. What does she say for the rest of this tweet? She says, given his track record, it's not hard to believe that Trump is wrong yet again. I mean, I don't understand. Okay, so let's do this objectively. Let's say, is Jenny Durkan correct? Let's find out. Let's go ahead. Let's try to find Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Okay.
So I can already tell you that it's not. She's saying it's not a lawless wasteland.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, first off,
I believe there's something in stream stuff that shows that they've had a select group of their members of their autonomous zone steal all the food.
Ooh, let's see that.
Should be on there.
So,
but yeah, if you heard, one of the organizers of this whole Chaz thing posted. I don't have the Twitter because I couldn't find out exactly what her name was. It's some Czech name, so I couldn't really search that too well. But she was posting that a group of their people had stolen all the food, and she was asking for donations, and she was asking for people to send in vegan substitutes for food.
Yeah.
So not just any food, but real fancy type vegan food.
Yeah, the real expensive stuff that's difficult to grow and everything. All right, so there is an Ian Miles Chong tweet that I'm trying to get up. And basically is a video of this dude getting assaulted by the resident warlord Raz, right? Former SoundCloud rapper.
Yep.
Just assaulting somebody, right? Now, is that guy the police? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But is he Seattle police? That dude just assaulted someone and nothing's going to happen. That's lawlessness. Also, it is insurrection because, hang on a second. We got to... there's a picture you can easily find. Or maybe not. Maybe they've scrubbed this already. This has been memory hold too, it looks like.
Yeah, every time I come across something, I've been saving it. I've been doing like screenshots. I've been saving it locally because there's been some times on other issues in the past where I would go and try to find a news article and link that and send it to somebody a couple days later, and it would be gone completely. Same with images. So now more than ever, it's good to do that.
So there's a picture of a barricade, one of those plastic barricades that you fill with sand. And I'm getting it up now. It is from Seattle. And it says Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone on it. Something about like black, like they paint like Black Lives Matter or something, I guess, underneath it. And the other sign says "You are now leaving the USA," which sounds to me like they've declared independence, which is rebellion and secession, and that sounds to me like an insurrection. Like, look at this.
Sounds like
you are now leaving the USA. They think they're a different country, or they're LARPing at least as a different country, right? And you want to talk about, oh, well, this is an armed insurrection. Like how the hell
they believe it's their own city-state.
What is so? Okay, so is Jenny Durkin correct? Well,
No.
It doesn't look like she is. First off, it is insurrection. There's no police there. There's no there's no laws there. There's no laws. It's just whatever that dude with the guns wants to happen. Everybody else has to follow along. And of course, everyone in there is like, oh yes, it's great, because either they're radical communist or they've got guys with guns that'll do something if they say something bad. I mean, this is literally, oh yeah, but everyone in the Soviet Union thinks it's great. That's because they can't have another opinion. They're not allowed to have another opinion.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
I don't get these ANCOMs, man. I really don't.
I mean, we could talk about that all day. Has Trump ever been wrong? Big Hair says. Yes, he has been wrong. But
he has been wrong.
But it's not like that. It's not anything close to what the media portrays it as. I mean, they're talking about like this guy, like he can't do anything right, but at the same time, he's also evil. So it's like, I think that dichotomy is hilarious. But Big Hair also thinks it's hilarious because they built a wall. Yeah, they built a wall around their country with guys with guns defending it. Guys also with guns. No women with guns as far as I've seen. I think they would have pushed that pretty hard if they didn't.
That's pretty sexist, yo. It's pretty sexist.
Yeah, it's been lawless. There have been assaults. This is anecdotal, but as far as I'm aware, the Seattle, and if I'm wrong on this, please correct me. But as far as I'm aware, the Seattle police chief has said that they've received like triple the number of violent crime reports from that area, and they can't do anything because the mayor and the mayor's office, the administration, won't let them do anything about it. It's crazy. So this is just more craziness.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. And these are the same people that want to say, oh, open borders, they're voting for people that want open borders and stuff, and they're literally I guess from one thing that I read is they have like checkpoints, like when you go in you get pretty much frisked, and you get your ID checked and everything. I read that somewhere. I don't have anything to post for you on that. Maybe you can look it up, but that doesn't sound like open borders to me. I mean, if I go there, they're going to stop me, they're going to frisk me, they're going to check my ID. They're probably going to ask me some propaganda questions like, oh, do you believe in Chaz? Do you believe in all this?
Yeah. Well, even so just right off the bat, I do want to say the left is not a monolith. It is not. There are groups that believe different things. You've got anarchists, you've got communists, you've got and then ANCOMs, which are some weird marrying of the two, and you've got left of center but still centrist. There's union Democrats, there's syndicalists, there's all this crazy my niche ideology I found on Reddit kind of thing, right? Yeah. But there are some common themes, like for example, Orange Man bad, etc., that is common, right?
Yep, common throughout.
So I do want to pause us and say,
yes, Big Hair, they do have immigration controls. That's what I would call it.
Yes, they do have immigration control.
Immigration control.
But I want to stress here they have not, as far as we are aware, unless we can find someone from this new country, right, that is sprung up in Seattle, unless we can find someone from them tweeting abolish ICE or whatever, I don't think we should use the immigration thing against these people. Just use what they are saying directly. Like, they are talking about abolish the police, but there's police there, what basically are police, right? And I've had this argument with communists before, where basically they say, you know, all cops are bastards, you know, 1312, right? All cops are bastards. And I said,
Yep.
And they're communists, and they're like, basically, you know, late stage capitalism is what's caused all these problems and allowed the police to become so corrupt, yada yada. And then I go, okay, so let's say I agree with you about the communist revolution. I do believe that the workers should rise up, right?
Okay.
Well, then what you end up having is the dictatorship of the proletariat, right? Which is this is lifted straight out of Marxism. The dictatorship of the proletariat is the workers basically either elect themselves or put themselves in positions of power over the bourgeoisie, and they now run the countries. They run the decisions. They make all decisions. The ownership, the collective ownership of the means of production, all this stuff requires the dictatorship of the proletariat. And there's all these commies that go, okay, that sounds great. And then I say, okay, what if I say I don't want to let you have my farm? Then what happens?
Right.
Then some people with guns show up and put them to my head and say, no, the people now owns your farm. How is that not police? How is that? They're enforcing what is now the state's laws, in that people should collectivize property, the means of production, farms, whatever. The only way you can enforce the dictatorship of the proletariat is to have police to enforce it. Like, there's simply no other way. Big Hair here says they're worse than police. There's no due process, no courts, no justice system whatsoever. Exactly. And this is what...
Yeah, because their demand is to get rid of the court system. If you look it up, they want to get rid of it.
Abolish prisons, abolish police. The issue, I think, with all this is there's a bunch of, like Big Hair said, bunch of LARPers saying, oh, well, you know, the people that are like, well, Stalin didn't do real communism. If I was in charge, I could do real communism, right? And now they're like, ooh, we can play around and have real communism. So they set up this commune, right? But then they're slowly rediscovering all the problems that have been solved in the past 300 to 400 years. You know? Like, this is...
I like how I forget when they actually started the Chaz. I forget when it was, but I think it's about only like 5 days. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
and they're already hitting like the major issues that had befallen different communist regimes that took them decades.
Well,
all it's doing is taking them a couple days. I mean, they already ran out of food because
it's a true microcosm, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing to see.
So I think the lesson I think to take away from this is we're being gaslit. We just straight up are being gaslit. Like, again, the image of Mayor Durkin's tweet, I'm just going to bring it right back up again, about how Donald Trump is like wrong again, when it's like, you know, you're wrong. Look at what you're trying to tell us. You're trying to say that this isn't an insurrection while there's signs saying leaving the USA, and you're trying to say that it's not lawless when it is. There is no law. By definition, this place has no laws because there's no code. I mean, written down laws are many thousands of years old. We're talking like 5,000 years old, okay? You know, Hammurabi's code is like 5,000 years old. This isn't new, right? We're not reinventing you're just reinventing the wheel here. laws have been written down for thousands of years. They don't have any laws other than what they verbally decree, which, guess what? That can change at a moment's notice. And people are being assaulted. Hell, they're within hours, somebody accused one of the people in charge of this whole thing of rape. I mean, you can check out all these other streamers have been streaming this. Like Sargon did something about this. I think, I don't know if SFO did anything about this, but like they straight up were talking about how this one transgender organizer was they were I think it was the same person that was like, oh, can you bring us vegan stuff? They were within hours accused of inappropriately touching somebody else. Like, bam, right off the bat.
Yeah, who's gonna police that?
Big Hair asks a question. He says, what is this mayor's strategy? What is her end game? That's a great question.
That's a good question. And I have another quick thing too. Mayor Jenny is the mayor of Seattle, right?
Correct.
So why is she speaking for the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone? That's
anyway.
They have separated from Seattle. They've decided that they are no longer Seattle. They've decided that they're no longer the United States. So why is Mayor Jenny, doing her politics and being like, oh, I'm going to speak for Chaz?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is, I think both of these, you got some really good points here. Chad Washington, excellent name, that's good. He says, end game is to bait federal military action. I think that's not a bad point. I think that's a good point.
That's not a bad point. Yeah.
So I think it's possible that Mayor Durkin is thinking politically here. She's making a political move in defending this place, letting it exist, right? Because we've already heard the Seattle police chief saying, like, we can't. We didn't want to give up this precinct that they took over. We were ordered out.
Yeah.
And she's like, I wanted to stay. Like, she was like, she gave a speech. She's like, that's where I had my first job, where she worked first before she climbed up the ranks to police chief. And now it's at the center of this commune, right? I think it's certainly plausible that Mayor Durkin is thinking, I let this exist. It continues to go on. If for example, the federal government does nothing, then they look weak. If they do something, they come and they crack down, then they look like they're fascists. And that's bad.
Yeah, imagine the media storm. Imagine the media storm if Trump comes in and says, hey, you guys don't want to take care of it, we are. Well, the media's got a field day with that.
He's already said, this is BS. I want, if you don't fix this, I will. So it's certainly plausible. I think Chad Washington is onto something there. That this is a purely cynical political move on the part of Mayor Durkin. It's certainly possible. I can totally believe it. Big Hair says Trump just has to sit back and do nothing. Run the footage as his campaign ads. Keep voting Democrats. This is what you get. That's not a bad counter. So Chad Washington is saying Durkin is hoping that Trump acts. Trump is saying, I will do something about this, right? So hopefully, if you want Trump to win, you hope what he's able to do is counter this by saying, look, this is what happens in Democrat cities. You're not safe. You will never be safe in a Democrat-run city because they will just totally allow for people to take things over. Cops won't show up. Guns to your head, dude assaults you because he's got the guns and he can get away with it, and the cops will do nothing. Now, the problem with that is, the only issue with that, Big Hair, is I don't know that, like, we've gotten to the point now where both sides are so polarized, there's very little in the way of convincing the other side to come over. There's such a distance between both sides now to cover that I don't think you're going to be able to. So will that
go ahead.
Sorry, will that coax moderates? Maybe, but I don't know. I don't know that it will, because I think a bunch of moderates, quote unquote, also think that Trump is bad. So that's just the way it is. Yeah, most people are normies. But I do think that if a normie sees cities burning to the ground and they see lawlessness like Chaz totally tolerated, I mean, maybe they say, okay, well, it's Trump's fault for not doing anything. But I do think that there is a point to be made that you could say, well, these are Democrat-run cities, and they've been Democrat-run for 40 years. That is that is a point that I think no one in the mainstream has picked up on. And hell, there's even been people on the Black Lives Matter side who I tend to agree with on this point of that, look, nothing's going to change while we keep voting the same people into power. And that part is 100% true. Nothing will change if you keep just voting for the same people, just because they say the things you agree with, but in the end, they keep doing the same stuff. Jacob Schmidt says people have instinctual reactions to this. Yeah, they do. But they do for a lot of things, and there is still room for persuasion most of the time if you're more moderate. If you're already in one of these camps, it's very difficult to flip you to the other side. Like, you're not going to go up to a communist and say, look, this is why Trump is right. You're never going to be able to convince them that. Same way that you're never going to go to someone from, I don't know if saying their name is going to get me demonetized, or, I mean, I'm not even monetized. I only have, 2 subscribers, and they're all here. But seriously, like, if you went to a certain white supremacist organization that likes to wear sheets for hats and say to them, this is bad, like, this isn't bad, like, what you think is bad isn't, it's very rare that they will be convinced. Now, that has been done, but it's rare. Like, you're talking a couple thousand people, maybe a handful, dozens come over. That's a drop in the bucket. And all it takes is a couple determined people for this to happen. I have 4 subscribers now. Look at, dude, we have 4 subscribers. We are killing it. Everybody look out. All right. So, let me see here. Uh-oh, it appears we've lost my co-host. Hang on a second. Hey, can you hear me? Just a moment, guys. Sorry about this. This is our first stream. We're going to have technical difficulties, you know.
What's up? Can you hear me?
There we go. All right, cool. So,
were you talking? I don't know if it dropped me or what, but
I think Discord messed up. But it's okay. We
Sorry
got you
about that,
now.
everybody.
We tied it all up. Yeah, we just plow on through. Oh, we got 5 subscribers now. Chad Washington. Thanks a lot, man. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna read Chad
Washington's. Thanks for putting up with my my little issue there. Not sure what happened. It didn't drop me or anything. It just stopped.
Yeah,
so
that was weird. Stupid Discord. All right, so we're gonna keep on going here and read the chat. Chad Washington says, so that doesn't mean black people are suggesting to vote for Republicans when they say Democrats aren't working. They're either admitting to continuing the riots or to find more leftists to put in office. That's true. That's true. So I do agree when we say that there are people like, I think it was even what's his face, the white guy that says he's black and people just believe him, Sean King.
Yeah, Sean King.
He was putting out something about how we've been voting for Democrats for 40 years, yada yada. Yes, he's not saying now vote Republican. He's saying vote farther left. I totally agree. I'm not saying that that's not the case. What I am saying though is the issue. You can't blame Republicans for things Democrats are doing in Democrat-run cities. And I think even a staunch Black Lives Matter activist that disagrees with the Democrats will agree with that point. They will, though, say that Orange Man's still bad and yada, yada, yada. But I think that is a good point, though, that when activists say that, they're not saying go to the Republicans. They're saying just go farther left and, revive the Communist Party of the United States from like the 1,000 people that are in it right now, or however many are. Thank you for the sub, by the way, everybody. Really appreciate it, guys, including Big Hair, who's got 499 subscribers. We've got Royalty as a sub. All right, so let's see. We've been doing this. Yeah, Talcum X. I just don't understand. Like, dude, the dude is obviously white, and there's been so much evidence over the years to show that, like his documented parents are white, and he tries to claim that his wife or his mom slept with a black man, and that was his dad, and I just no.
Yeah, it's just so weird, and it's,
I don't buy it. Now here's the thing: I don't even care. Don't even care, right? Doesn't mean you can't talk about this stuff. I just think it's stupid that this dude is literally Rachel Dolezal-ing it, except he was able to get away with it and she wasn't. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. And
maybe
Rachel Dolezal is from Northwest Washington.
Is she?
I think she was like Seattle or Spokane or something.
Do you think she's like the Chaz's Minister of Diversity and Inclusion or something?
Oh, I'm sure. Maybe she's like on vacation right now, but I'm sure she's gonna come back and just be front lines there and everything, big figurehead. Maybe they'll invite her on as like a political commentator for Chaz, an ambassador. Maybe she's the ambassador.
Oh my god. Okay, so have you ever heard of the website Cameo?
No.
So Cameo is a place where you can go as some famous person, and people will pay you money to say something on like a video. So you can be you can say, I want some famous sports guy to say, hey, happy birthday to so-and-so. I hear you're my biggest fan. Have a great day, yada, yada. You can give them like $25, $30 or however much that costs for one video, and they'll say it, right? Mm-hmm. Rachel Dolezal has a Cameo account.
Does she really?
Yes. Yeah, her...
Oh, gosh.
Her description here is author, artist, activist. Rachel Dolezal is an artist, activist, and author. She is a creative, loving mother of 3 sons. She's got 75 reviews. All of them are 5 stars.
Who's reviewing it? Her family?
I don't know.
Even her family's against her.
So, okay.
So we need to
read some of these
Somebody
comments.
needs to drop that on like 4chan or something.
Well, actually, here, let me say this. Don't do anything bad. I mean, because they've already got TOS. Like, you can't you can't send her a video request and be like, say that you're white. Because she's not going to do it. She's just going to say no.
You're right.
And I don't know if you probably won't get your money refunded, by the way. So don't do that.
Yeah, that's true.
But Chad Washington says there's no convincing at this point. It's staunch support of balkanization. Well, let's come back to that.
Yeah.
Let's come back to that because that's a whole other topic, I think. But Chad Washington, in response to to Talcum X getting away with it and Rachel Dolezal not, it's obviously his male privilege. That's what it is. It's hard being a woman in this country.
That's true.
You can't even pass yourself off as a different race. Big Hair says he's basically allowed to live a blackface LARP because he's on the left. But Rachel Dolezal was on the left too. So this is weird. The vast majority of the time, I think you guys are right. I think as long as it's politically correct, people will get away with whatever. It doesn't matter. But Dolezal was different. And I think because at the time, I think the reason is Dolezal came around when the whole cultural appropriation thing was a big deal. And I think now, though, it's become like we've crossed, like she tried to marry the worlds of transgenderism and trans racism or something like that, like whatever you would call it. But I think she was too ahead of her time. If she tried to do that now, she would totally get away with it.
Yeah.
But so I argue it's...
Yeah, I think you're right. I think she was a couple years early. If she would run for... she was president of the NAACP for Seattle or something? Or Spokane?
Something like that.
Let me read. Yes, she was. But now if she would do that now, she might be able to get away with it.
She might, yeah. Because maybe.
Chances are better now.
Well, there also would be thing about, you're pushing out actual POC voices and things like that. But Chad Washington says, can I pay her to read excerpts from Charles Murray's book? Definitely not. She'll say no. She'll say Charles Murray is 100% a racist like everyone else is. Except for her, of course. All right, so let's see. What else do we have? Oh, well, hang on. Let me read some of these reviews from her Cameo page because some of these are they are totally bots. Like they have to be bots. There's no way they aren't. Like they're all really short. Perfect. Highly recommend. So great. Thank you. Absolutely perfect. Great cameo.
You probably have to
Responded
pay
very
people
fast.
to put those on there.
That's totally possible. Totally possible. Thank you, Rachel. Incredible. Thank you.
So I'm reading up quick. So her parents actually outed her. That's how she ended up losing her NAACP and the whole thing.
I forgot about this. This was stuff like this was what, like 4 years old at this point when she was a thing. Like, she was a thing like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah.
June 2015 is when the boom dropped on her. But her white parents came out and said that she was just pretending to be black. So, I mean, when your parents come out and say that, oh, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, they're like, she's definitely white. Because, well, we're both
She must have missed a birthday or something, but, ooh.
I guess. So, Chad Washington says, she was a race pioneer of her time. That's right. There's always, like, I think I was watching Academic Agent the other day, and he was talking about reading a book. I forget what it was called. But about like when populations migrate, the first group is the pioneer group, right? They're the ones that are usually the hardiest, the ones that are going for, like they're trying to make a better life for themselves and work to integrate, etc. So what she was doing was she was a pioneer ahead of her time, trying to pave the way for transracial people of all types in the near future. That's what she was doing. All right, let's move on to some other stuff because there's plenty of things that we've found. So, what do we got here? Do you want to talk about now? A lot of people, we're not we're Americans, so we're not from the UK. But I think this stuff that's happening right now in the UK is also very relevant. Just let me go ahead and put this stuff up.
Yeah, with this going on over there, I've been talking. I have 4 friends that live in the UK, and I've just been asking them, and no, it's interesting, it really is.
Okay. So we got here BBC News says this was June 7th. So, about a week ago, they say 27 police officers injured in largely peaceful anti-racism protest in London.
Okay.
And then...
I mean, largely peaceful, 27 injured.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Definitely.
What is that image? Are there people on the ground?
Which one? The one
on the left? That just looks like chaos. Yeah, the one on the left, if you look, it's a dude on his horse. The horse is obviously startled because there's a bike tire going at the horse.
Yeah.
Behind that, it looks like 2 cops apprehending a protester or someone who's just ragdolled on the ground. I'm not sure.
Well,
maybe that's
they've got they got one of those high visibility vests on, so I bet they're police, or some government worker.
No, I'm talking about like in between the horses, but it's it's
that's
chaos.
the guy on the floor. There's people knocked out. 27 police officers injured during largely peaceful. 27 is a large number. Like that's a platoon. You don't just lose a platoon of people. They don't just get injured accidentally. It doesn't take one rock to injure 27 police officers. You know, that's a lot. That's a big clash.
I mean, the picture that they chose is not resembling a largely peaceful anti-racism protest.
Yeah.
That picture just looks like chaos.
Now, on the right-hand side...
It looks like there's nothing organized going on in that photo. It just looks nuts.
Yeah. By the way, Big Hair is apparently from the UK. So thank you for tuning in. I bet it's kind of late over there now. If you have any insight into this, we would definitely appreciate it. But you look on the right here, and it says right-wing protesters clash with police in central London. I mean, Just look at the pictures. If you just look
at
at the
picture, looks a lot more peaceful.
Now, I haven't seen the video, so maybe it devolves into a mess. But the one on the left is much more chaotic than the one on the right. Again, maybe it devolves because it is a video, so maybe you watch it devolve into chaos. But it's interesting here. I'm going to talk about this from the lens of someone who's done journalism before, has gone to school for this stuff. Like I know how to write headlines. And look at the first headline. 27 police officers injured during largely peaceful anti-racism protests in London. Okay? Notice how this is framed. Anti-racism protests. We've not assigned a political party to them. We haven't said they're left or right. We just said they're just against racism, right? They're anti-bad guy squad is what it is. So they've got to be the good guys, right? Automatically, you've ascribed something to them that is supposedly good. So you've already framed them as the good guys. Then you attach largely peaceful to that to describe them, right? And you've done that while also including 27 police officers injured, right? But they don't say directly 27 police officers injured by peaceful anti-racism protesters. They just say it happened during. Which, if you're someone who's left-wing, you could read that as, well, maybe there were white supremacists there that decided to attack the cops and tried to start something and paint the anti-racism protesters. Now, to their credit, below it does say anti-racism protests leave 27 police officers hurt, which does have, it's active voice, it's more anti-racism protesters leave 27 police officers hurt. That's anti-racism protests do something to police officers, right? Right. Which is more assigning direct blame to the anti-racism protests. But again, the main headline is largely peaceful, which that doesn't make any sense. Also, why do you need to say largely peaceful? Yeah. Like, the only reason you're saying that is because you're trying to cover their ass. You don't... Yeah, that's exactly if I were trying to write a headline, and I'm trying to simply describe what happened, I would say there was a protest, and then it turned violent. Because that's how all riots are, right? People don't just walk out of their house and chuck a rock at the police. People walk out of their house, they gather in groups, they yell at the police, it's initially peaceful, and then rocks are thrown, and that's when it devolves. It does, like, I'm tired of people saying things became violent. Well, of course they became violent. Any riot has to start peaceful and then become, or like it has to become a riot. You don't start a riot with one person that's walked out of their house and now everyone starts running out of their house. That's not how it works. You have a crowd that starts peaceful and it devolves into violence. Like, that's just how it works. So Big Hair says, normies, even in small villages, are putting out these End Racism and Black Lives Matter posters. Like, there's nothing racist happening ever where I live. Yeah, unfortunately, the left has secured the anti-racism narrative. They really have, because how could you possibly be against anti-racism? Except if you understand critical theory, anti-racism is not the same thing as not being racist. It's not. In fact, anti-racism is basically just racism against people that were racist to the original, like the original oppressed group. It's just the whole, there's no such thing as reverse racism. I guess that's really how it would work here, because you would say racism is a person says it thinks they're superior to another person based on their race, right? And there's a power dynamic there, usually. Like, for example, Jim Crow states in the South. That was totally a power dynamic. By the way, are you still there? Yeah. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure we didn't lose you. So there is a power dynamic there, and you could say then when that flips, that's reverse racism. So now there's Jim Crow for whites. That's like the reverse racism. That's actually what anti-racism is advocating for. If you look into critical theory, that's what it's talking about. It's just segregation all over again. But Chad,
I'm just thinking that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, like, I'm thinking about the whole dynamic, and obviously that people, when they look at these, tweets, they're not going to look at it in that lens. They're just going to see officers injured during largely peaceful anti-racism. They're probably not even going to click on the link. They're probably just going to look at the headline and be like, oh, wow, they were mostly peaceful, though, so, oh, well.
Yeah, that's another thing is totally... You want to talk about a pandemic. There's a pandemic of poor headline writing in journalism today, where you'll see a headline and then you read the article, and the article is like things in the article contradict the headline.
Yeah.
Which is totally... That is like the number one sin of journalism. But it doesn't matter, because if you fired these people that are writing these, you would be accused of like being wrongfully fired. You fired them for political reasons,
wrongful termination. Yeah.
But so Chad Washington says it obviously was peaceful, you bigots. Yeah.
We're sorry, Chad. You're right.
Yes.
You caught it.
Big Hair says, I believe total was actually 60 police officers injured last weekend in the end. And normies don't know what critical theory is. It's really sinister in that it appeals to your morality. Well, of course I'm not racist, while simultaneously subverting it. Agreed. That's exactly the point.
There's so much subversion.
The entirety of critical theory, the whole goal, is to say, if we came out straight out and said all the things that we want, and we're plain language about it, no one would accept it. The whole reason critical theory exists is it's not a way to stop racism. It's not a way to stop oppression. It is simply to say we have a counter narrative which we believe is better than the prevailing narrative. So all we're going to do is take that narrative and wrap it up in the language of the prevailing narrative to basically, like a virus, infect the DNA of the original narrative, replace it with our own, and now it's our narrative now. It's entirely what it is. That's the whole reason critical theory exists. It's not to say, here's an alternative perspective. It's to say, no, we're going to use your language against you with our... So, I mean, this is, you know what? This is actually an excellent segue, because we're going... Let's talk about the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Let me just get this up real quick.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, another thing too, big hair normies also don't read the news. They literally are just headlines.
That is true.
And I know a lot of people like that. And it's unfortunate. I would say most of the people that I talk with politically are definitely on the left, I would say.
Okay.
I mostly have that, and a lot of them do that. Yeah. Go ahead.
So they've redefined words, and here's an example of that. They just redefined the word racism, right? And remember, for the longest time, the argument would always be, well, look at the dictionary for racism, and it would be definition 1 here: a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Which the vast majority of people would be like, yeah, that sounds like racism to me, right? And then, but then you hear all these academics in African studies and women's studies and gender studies, right, that say, but actually racism is prejudice plus power, right? There has to be power dynamics for you to be racism, which is how white people can be racist, but any oppressed group can't be, right? This is exactly what has happened now with critical theory. Critical theory has effectively injected its own definition now into the mainstream by saying, we've redefined the word racism, and now it means what we mean when we say it. And now when you look at the dictionary, it has to be right, because we've laundered this idea now into the mainstream. Big Hair says, critical theory debate tactic. Yeah. If you are losing the argument, redefine your terms. That's not even just if you're losing the argument. That is simply, however, like, that is the playbook, period. It's the Mott and Bailey, right? And it's not even just we're losing, we need to redefine. It's the basis of critical theory. It's how do we get these radical ideas normalized in the mainstream? We don't just come out and say it. We don't just come out and say, okay, well, here's our radical ideas. They say, well, here's a term that everyone understands that we're going to tweak a little bit to suit our purposes, and we're just going to start throwing that word around now the way that we mean it, right? And people accuse us of being wrong, and we say, well, actually, it's this academic term that we're saying, so that's what we're really talking about, right? But what they've done is they've still planted the seed of the original meaning, right? That what we all think is racist, that these people are actually racist, even though they meant this really obscure political ideology, right? This political definition for it. But they've successfully injected their own, their end goal into the mainstream narrative now. That's the basis of critical theory. It's not even a we've lost the argument. That's what they do, period. But
yeah, and I'm looking more at 2. The second entry there.
Yes.
One of the most basic things that they teach you, especially in grammar school, is when you're defining a term, is not to use the term in the definition.
Yeah.
And so 2A is a doctrine or political program based on the assumption of racism, which isn't that what you're supposed to be defining, and designed to execute its principles, and then a political or social system founded on racism.
Yeah, it's so if you,
it's so sloppy. It's so sloppy.
If you, I've got also a background in computers, and I do some programming, and you have to be careful. This is a recursive statement here. It's a recursive definition. You'll end up just you're defining a thing by using itself. And what happens in computers is you actually will just end up with an infinite loop, because it'll just keep going back to its own definition, which just sends it back to its own definition and over and over, and it'll never stop, right? So it's totally that you're right. This is the exact wrong way to define something. You need to define it without using itself. But the
current loop is racism. Is racism. I mean, that's literally what the loop is right now.
And you've got it ends up becoming just a tautology anymore. It's all racist. Let's see here. So we've got
everything here.
Chad Washington says this isn't surprising. The left can't compete, so they have to bend or break the rules. It's a female tactic. Oh, that's sexist, sir. You need to check your male privilege there. I wouldn't argue that it's necessarily a female tactic, because I don't think it's inherent. Like, it's not because, like, you could say, oh, well, my wife always just changes the argument or changes what she means to be right. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think what's happened here is you really have to look back at the basis of the critical theory. And it's not, and again, this isn't just the left. This is the subversive part of the left. This is the actual communists, the actual the people that were like hashtag the Soviet Union did nothing wrong, I love Mao, hammer and sickle in their Twitter profile. That's what we're talking about. And this is how the rest of the left comes along with them, is they've subverted the rest of the left by using the language of liberalism, that was the foundation of Western democracies, and has injected their own definitions into these words, into the narrative, that have allowed the communists to basically take over the mainstream. So I don't agree that it's necessarily a female tactic, but I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree there, Chad.
Chad, I would add, you said it's a female tactic. I'd also add soy boys into that as well.
So I guess the argument is simply it's a lack of testosterone argument.
Yeah, it's a beta tactic. It's a beta.
Chad also says it's psychologically female. Because I don't want to sit here and say it's inherent to females, because I've been surrounded with plenty of females that don't think that way, but maybe I am the exception to the rule. I don't know. Regardless, though, Big Hair says the Motte and Bailey is another term for doublespeak. I don't know if that's actually the definition. They're certainly, I would totally argue that they're tied together. They have to be, because that's the definition. I mean, I don't know if anybody sat down and was like, Mott and Bailey, yeah, doublespeak from 1984. But regardless, they're absolutely intertwined. They have to be. Racism is a political system founded on racism seems legit. Exactly.
Exactly.
That's it.
You know what's sad about this? Like,
read it. It sounds ridiculous.
And right there at the top, Merriam-Webster since 1828. So a lot of people look at Merriam-Webster as this legitimate, word-defining, I wouldn't call it a company or whatever it is, organization that has gone back hundreds of years.
Yeah, since 1828.
And has pretty much defined much of what we use today as the modern English language and other languages as well. And here they go with this sloppy new definition that the only reason they changed it was because of social justice and peer pressure. It looks bad. This looks really bad on Merriam-Webster.
It's poorly done too, like Big Hair was saying. Just read it out loud. It sounds terrible. Chad Washington says, yes, soy boys are the same thing. Big five traits. You've been reading and listening to your Jordan Peterson, I see. And Chad Washington also says, yes, not all. It's a generality that holds. I think that you could probably find that to be true. I'm not sure why that might be the case. So I don't know if it's necessarily... I guess the question would be, is it... It's not then a derivative of... It's not like the cause and correlation thing. It's not the cause of why this person is that way. It is just highly correlated with that. The cause is probably likely, like we were saying, maybe it's a lack of testosterone, I guess? Maybe? I don't know. But that's interesting.
I wish we could ask Dr. Peterson. He really needs to come back. This is a perfect time for him just to cover all this.
I did see a meme somewhere. Somebody was like, Jordan Peterson really picked a really bad time to step away, But I totally understand. Like, he was in bad health. He was taking, I guess, his doctor had prescribed him some like anti-anxiety stuff because his wife had what was supposedly terminal cancer, but she actually beat it. Which congratulations to her. Oh, hang on a second. Excuse me there, but. I guess, he had a really hard time coming off of that stuff and checked himself into rehab, which, that sucks. That's really bad. I mean, and again, this guy has been very vocal about admitting his own mistakes, and I think the fact that he was like, I'm just going to straight up check myself into a rehab facility is really good about accepting he has an issue, which is very important. But anyway, I did see that I guess his birthday was the other day. And apparently they went out to eat somewhere, and they're gonna, like, him and his daughter are pretty close. She has a podcast, I guess, but they're apparently gonna do some updates soon, which is cool because I enjoy his works. I really liked his scientific look at the Genesis. That was very interesting. Yeah. I've never been so enthralled with just a couple hours. Like, there was like 12 lectures that were like 2-3 hours long. I've never been so enthralled with something that sounds so dry. It was amazing. But anyway, let's continue reading here. Big Hair says, also in the UK this weekend, the media are outraged at a man taking a piss next to a police memorial. Last weekend, they were applauding statue and memorial vandalism and hashtag defund the police. That's interesting. So... why do you think the narrative changed there for the media? Because police are bad. ACAB, right? So shouldn't it be good that somebody is peeing on a police memorial? Or let me guess. Was this person white and supposedly right-wing? I bet that's why.
Yeah, that's weird. That's a very, I would say, a very rare flip in the narrative because, I mean... typically, if somebody pisses on a police memorial, especially now, they probably give him like the key to the city or something. Give him some award. Like, look at you standing up.
He does
police,
say,
but wow.
Big Hair does say that it was the right-wing protests this weekend, and yes, he was white. So there you go.
There it is. Yeah,
that's why.
How dare a white person do that?
Yeah, Chad Washington says weak men tend to be more feminine. It's a defense mechanism. Yeah, and that's
I agree with that. That's true.
That is true. I think that's also why you find most predators are male feminists. And my argument for that would be, if you're not desirable, to most females. It's difficult for you to create a relationship with them because they're not attracted to you, so it's hard to even get to that point where you could build a bond beyond being a friend. And so then they've got, if you've never if you're someone who feels like you're a beta, right, and you're like, well, I'm never going to get a chance to be with anybody, it could be a totally unconscious thing where you're like, well, I have to get what I can when I can, and so you do this male feminism stuff and you're around females all the time, and then you think, for example, that, oh, she likes me, she's giving me all these signals, but she's also a feminist, so she's like, I can revoke my consent at any time, kind of thing. Yeah. Or not revoke my consent at any time, because that is true. At any time, she could say stop, and like you gotta stop. What I'm saying is retroactive revoke of consent. That's totally plausible. But anyway, that's total digression. Not sure if you're familiar with biological Leninism, Chad Washington says. Yeah, I heard about this. Again, that was something I heard initially on an AA stream. I guess, was it Charlemagne was on there and he brought it up. But regardless, I think the way it was framed as you use the dregs of society, like you find all the criminals and you give them the guns and you let them go take care of your problems let them help you take care of your problems, and then once you're secure in your power, you just chuck these people out the window at the first opportunity. I might be getting that wrong though, so if I'm wrong on that, Chad, please let me know. And I still got you there, right? You're still with me?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so and then next we've got Big Hair here says this weekend. Oh yeah, we covered this, that he was white and there was right-wing protests. So yeah,
there it is.
We've covered the doublespeak. We've covered the infection of critical theory into mainstream terms and news and all this stuff. We've covered the just straight up gaslighting by the media. Let's see, what else can we talk about? We could do some more. We could do some more about. Let's see here. Another mayor. Let's talk about another mayor. Here, let me bring it up. Back to the United States now. Let me bring this up. Yeah, I think I know what. I think you know what I'm about to go to. Oh man.
Probably my favorite mayor.
Yeah, the one that looks like Beetlejuice. She's so like
the one that shuts the city down and then gets her hair done.
Was that her or was that the governor? I thought that was the governor of Illinois, not the mayor of Chicago.
Yeah, hang on. I don't want to give you fake news.
Yeah, because it was the governor that ordered the state to shut down, and then the mayor's just going along with that order. She's like, I'm on board with that. Anyway, so this is Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who is the mayor of Chicago, one of the largest cities in this country. She says, hang on a second, excuse me. Sorry about that. So this was, there's no date on this tweet. But this was a couple weeks ago now, when there were still protests for like open things up, end the lockdown, yada yada. But she says, regarding today's large unpermitted gathering at Millennium Park, because remember, screw the First Amendment, because we don't permit it. While we respect First Amendment rights, that's automatically a contradiction. You've already contradicted yourself. She says, this gathering posed an unacceptable health risk and was dispersed. No matter where in the city you live, no one is exempt from Governor Pritzker's the lockdown order.
The end of it is lockdown.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. You cannot say we respect your First Amendment rights and then break up a protest. Right? Not violent. Not violent at all. No one got hurt, but it's an unacceptable health risk. So as soon as people get sick, chuck the First Amendment in the trash. Doesn't matter anymore.
Yep, doesn't matter. We need the public health #1.
Yeah. By the way, Big Hair says it's 1:20 here. but I cracked open another beer. Well, that's good, man. I'm glad this is entertaining you. Enjoy your beer. And you'll like this. To paraphrase Alex Jones, this woman is a demon. Just look at those eyes.
Oh yeah.
Chad Washington says.
After this, can you bring up like a large photo of her, because she does look like Beetlejuice.
Yeah. When we're done covering that, we'll definitely do that. Chad Washington says, "Does this Beetlejuice need to be canceled since he's technically doing blackface?" It's a she, by the way. That's a woman, believe it or not. And
don't worry, Chad. I made the same mistake. I thought it was a guy.
Cheers, Chad Washington. So then this was 2 weeks ago now. She says there was a peaceful protest in Daley Plaza this afternoon. I thank those demonstrators for peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights and demanding #justice for George Floyd. This is total double standards, because let's remember back. Let's think about this. 3 weeks ago, when people were protesting lockdowns, what was the call from most media? The resonating call: you're gonna kill grandma. Nothing is worth killing grandma. They're like, look, we understand there are rights in this country, but sometimes we need to make sacrifices to ensure people don't get killed, right? Yep. Except when we deem the cause to be sufficient. So it's not that you shouldn't kill grandma. It's that, well, actually grandma can die as long as we think that she's dying for a good reason.
She's dying for our reason.
Exactly. And that has to be true, because it's not like the coronavirus just goes, well, I'm just not going to transmit myself between people at this rally because it's for #justice for George Floyd. You know, that's not how that works. If any gathering is a health concern, any gathering is a health concern. You can't just say one's a health concern and one isn't. But here, let's go ahead and try to find a good picture of Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
And just, for full context of these tweets, I just looked it up, and Governor Pritzker's lockdown procedure for like assembling has not changed. So it's still that way.
Right.
But because, maybe there's somebody who says, oh, well, that was back then and they've lifted the lockdown procedures for Memorial Day. No, it's still there. So it's just her being double standard.
Right. Actually, hang on. Let me so it's no matter where in the city you live, no one is exempt from the lockdown unless it's for #justice for George Floyd. All right, so let me get this. This picture. I have to hear me laugh. This is because I found that picture. Let me see here. Why can't I save this one? I want to save it. Okay, here we go. No,
maybe Google knows you're doing a podcast and it's
screwing me over.
You're saying bad things, so they're like, we're not giving you content.
I guess so. Oh, here we go. I found it. Ha. You can't stop me. Oh man, this is gonna be so good. Oh, it's really good too. It's really high resolution. Hang on. You're gonna see every little crack and
Gotta see those demon eyes.
It's great because this is the first picture when you Google it that pops up. Like, there's some where she's like smiling and it doesn't actually look that bad. She kind of looks like a personable person. But there's some where
when she's got the first photo.
I am. This is the first photo. Wow, this is really big. I have to really resize this just to get it to fit.
So nobody can fault you for that. You're just going on Google Images. You're not typing in Mayor Lori Lightfoot Beetlejuice, are you? You're not doing anything like that. No, you're just doing the normal name, Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Look at this. Look at this. Look, I know.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes people just look unfortunate, but she looks dead in the eyes. But anyway, so Big Hair says this is another aspect of critical theory. Make innocent people feel guilty about potentially killing people just by walking around healthily living their lives. Yeah, that's true. The Walking Dead. Yeah, there was this, and then somebody else. I think it was like the health coordinator for Los Angeles County or something. She looks pretty dead. Like she looks like the undead.
I saw that. Yeah.
But the Big Hair's right. You're trying to make the prevailing masses feel a certain way. You want them to feel guilty when they do things you don't want them to do, and you want them to feel good when they do things that you want them to do. They attack very fundamental things about how you feel and what you do.
And, I think the average person, looks at the general morality of society, and they don't want to be on the wrong side of it. They don't want to do something that upsets anybody.
Right. Exactly.
So when they read this, they're like, okay, I guess what I'm doing by protesting my Second Amendment or protesting the lockdown, I guess I'm immoral on that. And then when I'm going out and protesting for George Floyd, I guess I'm being moral.
Right. Well,
they're just kind of following it.
I don't even know that I'm going out and protesting. I think that's more aimed at people who are sitting on their couch.
Right. It's just how they feel about it.
And they say, okay, well, I see a bunch of people walking around in the street with signs saying end the lockdown, but all I'm hearing is that that's dangerous. That's really dangerous. They could be hurting people and spreading the virus. That sounds like a dumb idea. But then you then hear, I think though that's also when a lot of people went, hang on a second. You just said protests were bad. Now protests are good. I do think that got a couple people up in arms that were normies. I do think some normies went, wait a minute. Why is this now okay? Big Hair says, especially when you look at the numbers, I don't know about the US, but in the UK, 88% of COVID deaths are over 65, and 50% of those are over 90. Yeah, a similar trend is happening here, and let me just go ahead and find the data to back that up, because I don't want to make unsubstantiated claims here.
No fake news. We're trying to combat fake news.
No fake news. Why don't you go ahead and keep talking about this while I find this real quick?
Sure. So I read something also about the deaths of COVID where the average age is the people dying of it. I don't know if this is true or not, but the people dying of it, the average age of them dying is higher than the average mortality rate in the United States.
Oh, right. Yeah. So you actually, if you've died of coronavirus, you've lived longer than you were expected to.
Then you've lived, yeah. Then if you had whatever else. So, I believe I saw it somewhere.
So yeah, that's okay. I found some data. It's not by percentage though, and it's not aggregated. It's only by week. And it's from the CDC too. So this is the United States Health. The Center for Disease Control putting this data out. Let me see here.
Okay, well, Big Hair said his numbers are from the ONS, which is the Office for National Statistics. So, we're both using good sources here. We're not using Huffington Post or Sun.
Well, I was going to say some tinfoil hat guy in his basement, but yeah. So let me see here. Yeah, I'm having a hard time. Yeah, it doesn't have it aggregate. Let me see if I can find it where it's all aggregated, so I don't have to do the math myself, because I don't want to do that.
They don't have it as like a graph or anything, or some sort of chart?
They do, and here, I'm going to post a link in the chat in case anyone's interested. Give me a second. Just a moment. That's where the link is. And if you look at it, it doesn't have it broken down. It has it broken down by age and stuff, but it's only for that week. So like it has the peak. The peak happened the week ending 4/18/20, and all the deaths start going down from there.
Okay.
But it doesn't have totals.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. But you can see just in this, if you're looking at it, the They do have the age groups, and yeah, it is mostly hitting older.
It's
definitely
vast majority. Is
vastly older people.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pick. I'm just gonna do some quick math. I'm gonna pick the peak week, right? Because that's when it was the worst. That's the only reason why I'm not. There's no other reason for me to do that. So it looks like the. Let's see what we got here. So the total number of deaths was, doing the number right now. Sorry guys, this is probably really boring to listen to, but I'm trying my best.
First trial run.
Yeah. Okay.
So Big Hair says, is it true that the CDC removed 38,000 deaths overnight?
I don't
heard
know.
this a few weeks back. I'm not sure, but
yeah, I don't know about that.
One thing that I always thought was weird is, and there's been a lot of skepticism over this, is things that there's, when they say that somebody dies from coronavirus, is it because they're actually dying of the virus, or is it because they're having other issues?
There is a lot of the correlation with comorbidities and dying of coronavirus is quite high, like in the 80 to 90% range. So even if you die of coronavirus, it wasn't because you were totally healthy. It's vast majority of the time is because you're sick with something else. Which, as you get older, the likelihood of that increases, which is why you probably will see people who are older have higher morbidity rates. So the total number of people that died, according to the CDC, of coronavirus during the week of April 12th to April 10th was 16,153. So just people 85 and over, 5,405 of them died. Out of 16,153, that's 33%. Right?
Okay.
That's 85 years and older, which is, again, like you said, way above the...
Yeah.
If you made it to 85, you did really good. You made it, right? 75 to 84 was 4,378. So everyone 75 years and older, that is 60%. 60% of the people that died during the peak week were 75 years old or older. Let's keep going. Let's say, what about 65? What about 65? The total number from 65 to 74 is 3,353. All right, so I'm going to add that up. 13,136 out of 16,153. That's 81%. 81% of the people who've died of coronavirus are at retirement age. 81%.
And just to put it in a perspective, if I just Google real quick, average life expectancy in the U.S. Comes up to a 2017 statistic, but it's 78.54 years. UK is 81.16 years, and that's not gender specific or anything. So yeah, when they, the people that are dying at these, older ages, I'd even say 75 and above, yeah, they're going to have a lot of other issues in most cases.
So Big Hair says, I have personal experience with this. My granddad died in April. He was hospitalized with necrotizing osteosis externa and then contracted COVID while in hospital. So even there.
Really?
Interesting. So that there was just like... So am I saying that coronavirus isn't a problem? Well, it's obviously a problem because it's killing people. But I think the point that I'm making is 81% of the deaths in the United States were people that weren't even at the age that people work. Yeah. So if
mostly retired.
Right. So then why you mean to tell me that we're just going to shut the economy down because of people that aren't even out working?
Right.
That doesn't make much sense. Anyway, I think we're getting a little bit off topic, but I do think that it is important to understand that, is it bad that people are dying? Yes, it is. Are we attacking this the right way, though? I think there's totally room for argument to say that we're not. But Big Hair says the point is, was there any point in the lockdowns? Exactly. Were you going to protect Grandma by not going to work? Probably not. Probably not.
Probably not.
Am I a health expert?
Is your grandma going to work? I mean, yeah.
No, my grandma doesn't work. My grandmother hasn't worked for 40 years, probably. Chad Washington says, mother's a nurse. Hospitals are getting federal aid based on reported cases and deaths. Ooh, now that's a problem. That is a problem. Because now
they can embellish those. I read that before. They can embellish those numbers.
Yeah.
If they report more cases, they're going to get more money.
So you've now introduced an incentive to produce more numbers than they really are. Yeah.
Yeah.
He says that the numbers
and then Chad's saying the numbers are highly inflated. Yeah.
Now, that's anecdotal. Unless Chad, if you can produce a source for that, I would love that. That would be awesome. Oh shoot! I had a thought and I just lost it. It was very much related to all this. I was very excited to share, and I just lost it. Oh, I hate that. I do that all the time. But, do you have any other points on this before we move on? We might cover one more thing before we get going.
Sure. No, I mean, so the big thing about those numbers being inflated, there was a nurse that came out. I forget, her name was like something Olszewski. You'll have to look it up, but something with homework. But she did a video. I think it was part of Project Veritas or something, and she was saying that people were dying where their test results were not back yet, whether they had COVID or not, and they were just reporting them as COVID deaths. Right. So it's something to look into maybe for next time. But yeah, I do believe that if, they're inflating the numbers to get more resources, hospital administrators are probably making that call. They're probably saying, well, let's not rule out COVID as their death. Let's just put it in there as a possibility. And then they can say, hey, here's a death that this person probably died from COVID. Right. And, it's going to make it seem like that area is having like a quick flurry, like there's a little hot spot right there, and they're going to get more money.
So, Big Hair.
I absolutely agree, Chad.
Big Hair makes a good point. He says, this is the same in the UK. Deaths are reported as with COVID, not of COVID, which is a very important distinction.
That's exactly it. With COVID, yep.
Very important distinction. So I remember,
but it still counts as a COVID death.
Right, exactly. So I remember what I was going to say, and it was Chad bringing up the idea that you get aid based on how many patients you have, right? And it reminded me of a point that Thomas Sowell makes when it came to like why he left the ideas of Marxism behind and stopped working for the government. He did it because he realized activist groups, whether they be in government or a nonprofit organization or whoever, don't exist to solve the problem they purport to solve. They only exist to survive. Like pretty much everything else. Everything exists to survive. And this is the same problem with labor unions. This is what happens with labor unions. When labor unions get too big, it's because they're not concerned about the workers. They're concerned about the union surviving, right? That's the point. The union doesn't exist to protect workers. The union exists to protect the union. It just so happens that sometimes the workers fall under the union, right? Same thing with activist organizations. Activist organization is not there to solve the problem. They're there to keep the activist organization going, which has been a real big criticism of Black Lives Matter. Is Black Lives Matter actually about solving these problems, or is it about keeping Black Lives Matter going? And if it is about keeping Black Lives Matter going, then there's always going to be a problem for them. They're never going to say it's not a problem. And a big the example, the societal example I can point to is the LGBT community, right? So in the United States, like everyone was complaining about how the United States was like the last Western country to legalize gay marriage or something like, I don't know if that's exactly right, but we didn't do it as early as the vast majority of most other Western countries. I personally
we were behind Europe, and and that's pretty much what they base that off of.
Right, but I personally don't care. I really don't care. As long as it's consenting adults, doesn't matter. If I see something that's like some weird stuff, like you start seeing transgenderism, fine. You want to mess up your own genitals, go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you. I might say that that's not right, but I'm not going to say, well, you can't get married or you can't do whatever. Like, I have no power to do that. And even if I did have the power to do that, I wouldn't. But the point I'm trying to make is gay marriage was legalized in this country.
Yeah.
Why are there still gay marriage activists? Like, they just shifted over to now say, okay, well, now there's like this systemic oppression, this unseen oppression that no one can point to, but they just say it exists. That's what happened. And it's a kind of a perfect storm of critical theory subverting their movement, and at the same time that you also have their acceptance was at an all-time high. They got done what they purported to really want to have done, but now the organization wants to stick around, and critical theory gives them an opportunity to say, but we're never done, so we can survive. We've got here that Big Hair says, also, with many people are not tested and are assumed to have COVID just because they have a fever. This happened to someone who lives in the same village as me. Chad Washington says, best friend is a paramedic. His wife is a nurse. They tell me the same. So take that as you will, I suppose. Yeah, it's tough because you're not going to get, I doubt you're going to get many studies published about the over-reporting of COVID deaths, because who's going to fund those studies?
And the media wouldn't back that anyway.
Right, it's not going to get a lot of traction. So even if it does exist,
it would also make I mean, if there was less COVID deaths, that would make Orange Man look less bad. And that can't happen.
This is an interesting
under
point.
Any circumstances that can't happen.
Big Hair says, also that goes for charities. What's the point in cancer research if there's a cure for cancer? Yeah, there is. Yeah, so like this is an interesting distinction, because in the United States we've got an organization called Wounded Warriors or something like that, that help. Their organization is supposed to help veterans that have sustained disabilities due to their service get help, right? Get prosthetics, wheelchairs, whatever. And that's a cause that actually will probably always have people to help, right? The problem of war is never going away. So you're always going to have wounded soldiers and sailors and Marines, etc., yada yada. So that problem will always exist. So that's something that you could probably point to a little less and say, okay, well, that's a problem that actually does exist all the time. So there is that. So sometimes with charities, I would say. But yes, are some cancer charities? I do think there are some cancer charities, if they support paying for people getting treatment for cancer, I think that's noble, because then you're directly helping people get treated for disease, as opposed to cancer research, which, although I do think that there are people out there that are working on cancer research legitimately, but again, it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say because everyone says the same thing. How do you know who the bad actors are? Chad Washington says, have you guys read BLM's mission statement on their front page? I have not.
So Chad, yeah, if you want to go to it. Chad, I have spent a lot of time on BLM's page, especially around their whole defund the police page is pretty ridiculous. Yeah. Their website is horrible. And I'm not just talking about the content. Their website is really hard to maneuver. It's really hard to find what you're looking for. It usually gives me a headache when I go on it.
Okay, so blacklivesmatter.com, they say, like, right at the front, hashtag defund the police. See the demands. Sign the petition.
Of course.
Rest in power, because it's all about power. Get critical theory again, rearing its ugly head.
So I'm looking on here now. I don't see the mission statement on the front page. It used to be right up top, but I think it got bumped because now there's stuff to talk about, like defund the police.
Right. Chad Washington says, didn't Floyd get reported as having COVID after the fact? I was half waiting for the media to slam or to claim Chauvin gave it to him. Yeah, he did. I remember seeing that
Somebody
were
said he did
reporting
have COVID, yeah. Somebody said he had COVID.
But I think it looked like he was asymptomatic, which the vast majority of people are, by the way. It seems that there have been multiple studies in like Los Angeles County and New York City and New Jersey that have shown this. So that they do antibody tests and they find more people are actually have these antibodies than they expected by like factors of 40. But yeah, I did see somebody report that they had coronavirus, and somebody said that this is proof that we live in a simulation and we're just being messed with. Because this is a crazy crossover episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, they didn't accuse that, and I think probably because that would be maybe just a step too far. But again, how many times have we thought, nah, that's a step too far, and they've actually done it. Big Hair says the COVID numbers point to critical theory subversion, though. Critical theorists need the UK, USA to be the worst when it comes to COVID because white supremacist patriarchy, etc. That's a good point. I don't even know necessarily because white supremacist patriarchy. I think it's just because the entire basis of critical theory is to destroy the prevailing narratives and the current structures that exist. That's the goal, and so as long as you can just portray these places as bad, constantly bad, then you'll get that done. So, but I do agree that would be, it is in the interest of those who subscribe to critical theory that is the case. Big Hair says also check out BLM UK GoFundMe page. It is wild. Let's do that in a sec.
Yes, Big Hair.
We'll end with that. But real quick, and Chad Washington says BLM got slammed in a Reddit AMA the other day for their about page and not disclosing where their funding goes. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yep. BLM is just a front for the Democratic Party. Straight up.
I gotta remember that. So you can bring this up on yourself, but the BLM donate goes to something called Act Blue. And Act Blue is a platform used by all progressive and democratic.
I'll be right back.
It's actually, sure. It was, Act Blue was built for democratic and progressive fundraising for many different things. The thing is, when you donate to Act Blue, after that, the secure.actblue, that's where the trail stops. You can't track where your funds are actually going. So there's a lot of speculation that they are using it for political donations. They're not actually using it to help Black lives. And people called them out on that because they donated, they looked up Act Blue, somebody blew the whistle on that, and they're like, well, where's my money going? Is my money going towards rebuilding Minneapolis since part of it got burned down? And there was no answers to it.
I'm back now, but sorry about that. But I do have to get going soon, so let's go ahead and end with reading the BLM UK GoFundMe page.
Okay.
GoFundMe.
Fundraiser.
Okay. How do
GoFundMe UK BLM. But yeah, I'll look it up. I actually looked at it earlier. Yeah, I think it was yesterday, and they had over like 850,000 euros donated. It was like over 30,000 donors. I can't imagine what it's at now. It's probably close to 900,000 or a million.
I'm trying to find it, and I'm having a hard time finding it. And
hang on. I'll paste it in the general, or no, I'll put it in stream stuff.
I mean, there's a ton. There's
this is the main one. The main one's called UK or BLM UK.
Okay.
Or UK BLM.
Give me a second.
Fund. I think that's the one that Big Hair is referring to.
Okay, yeah, they've made a lot. They've got it's currently at 886,841 pounds.
Okay.
So, all right. So let's read who we are. Here, I'm gonna put a link to this in the chat just to make sure. Yeah, we should start our own. We make a lot of money because they're. I mean, there's a bunch. You read through. There's a whole bunch. I'm just gonna go ahead and read just a couple that I found just by searching Black Lives Matter UK. Rowers for Black Lives Matter UK, 2,200 pounds raised. Black Lives Matter UK Relief Fund, birthday fundraiser for Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter UK, Black Lives Matter UK, Black Lives Matter UK, Black Lives Matter UK, Black Lives Matter UK Support Fund. Like tons of stuff. Anyway, you can't tell me that all these people are totally legit. But anyway.
Oh, the comment section's just insane.
So, who we are, Black Lives Matter UK is a coalition of black activists and organizers across the UK. We've been organizing since 2016 for justice in our communities. I mean, sounds innocuous enough. Let's keep going. We're guided by a commitment to dismantle imperialism, capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and the state structures that disproportionately harm black people in Britain and around the world. There you go. There's your communism. Dismantle capitalism. There it is. It's right there. Like it's outwardly communist. We build deep relationships across the diaspora and strategize to challenge the rise of authoritarian right wing across the world from Brazil to Britain. We're developing new and exciting ways of organizing that center transparency, accountability, safety, and healing for our organizers and our communities. BLM UK organizes in the Black radical tradition using political education, direct action, and political leadership toward Black liberation. So let's.
Oh boy.
So you want to let's read some of these comments.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. I pray for the end of racism. That was 10 pounds. Donated 100 pounds. I went to help. 20 pounds. Donated because this someone on Twitter was spouting some nonsense about UK BLM being a Marxist organization being given free rein to terrorize our streets by biased media and woke politicians. LOL. They helpfully shared a link to this page though. Thanks. It says it right here. Dismantle capitalism.
The first paragraph.
That is Marxist Theory 101. What are you talking about? Nonsense.
Dismantle imperialism, capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and the state structures. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't sound like revolution at all.
Big Hair, we would totally be down to sit and chat sometime. Schedules might be difficult to organize, but if you've got time, man, definitely hit us up. In fact,
yeah, that's dumb. Now I will say,
is there a way to PM somebody? Can I PM this person?
I will say, whoever did whatever the media source did, they should not have shared this GoFundMe page because I think that probably did bring some more people into it. So.
Well, that was. I mean,
shame on that media.
Well, they probably cited this because they were trying to say it was Marxist. But anyway, someone Burning Hearts Fighting Entertainment donated 150 pounds. Black Lives Matter, they say. 5 pounds. The UK is not innocent of racism, and now more than ever, this has become more and more clear to me, and I want to help. Let's see here. 10 pounds. We must eradicate protocols that erase the chance of all people receiving justice. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but okay. Robert Johnson donated 50 pounds. Fuck the fascists. By the way, YouTube, that's a quote. I'm simply quoting.
Yeah, YouTube, don't get us.
They're gonna. It's fine. Let's see here. 50 pounds. Enough is enough. I hope the tide has turned, and thank you not letting this one go. You have a lot of support in the UK. I mean, these people must have a ton of money to donate. That's just laying around. Like these aren't working class people donating their money. Let's see. This person donated 471 pounds, sending on behalf of myself, all these other yada yada, all these other people, Latin dance community, UK and worldwide. because we want to be loud and clear. Everyone is welcome here. And if you don't send them money, you're racist. And not anti-racist for sure. Oh, this is great. Donated £75. We did a fundraiser to help stop racism from... Congratulations, guys. We did it. We stopped racism. From Betsy and Ruben, aged 6 and 8. Thank you to our neighborhood for the donations. And again, these are Marxist institutions. They're spouting Marxist propaganda about dismantling imperialism, capitalism, all this stuff. That's straight out of the Communist Manifesto stuff. And we're talking.
Do you remember the part in? Do you remember the part in George Orwell's 1984 where the guy's son turns him in for thought crime?
Yeah, which is
that's pretty much what this is.
That's a real thing.
Age 6 and 8. Like, geez, if those kids are like, "Oh, my mom said this," and they're gonna, goodbye, mom.
Yep. I mean, that actually did happen.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Chad Washington, there's no reasoning with the left. There must be separation. I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm kind of at a point where I fear that there may be balkanization, but at the same time, I don't think that would happen, because for balkanization to happen, that has to happen peacefully, and I just think that there's just too much rage on both sides right now. Big Hair says we call them middle-class lovies. Yeah, a bunch of middle-class people with enough money to spare have donated to these causes, when it's like working-class people are like, what is this nonsense? Chad Washington, I'm telling you, we could make a killing, then donate to businesses that got burnt down and subvert. Yeah, but then we'd have to disclose our skin color, and then that would be a problem.
So there's a comment. It's like you have to scroll down a bit. You don't have to find it. It's just real quick. It says Black Lives Matter, and then it also says Black Trans Lives Matter. So,
oh man. See, but what
in the past?
What does this have to do with being transgender? Nothing.
Well, what does it have to do with being transgender? Why are we bringing that into it? And B, anytime that somebody would say other than just Black Lives Matter, they were accused of not being sensitive enough.
Yeah.
Like, because there were people even putting like small business owners' lives matter, stuff like that, and they're like, how dare you be so insensitive? And somebody I remember seeing put Mexican lives matter. They got shit for that, but now you're putting Black Trans Lives Matter. So
I see that.
They better watch that.
They donated £50. Well, I don't understand. If someone is trans and black, they are already black. Like in saying Black Lives Matter, you've already covered that person.
Yep.
Oh man, this is great. We stand by our black colleagues and the wider black community. £240. So again, this is a white person that's done it. They're doing it on behalf of black people, because black people can't
probably
speak for
got
themselves.
done washing the feet and everything.
Yeah. So yeah. All right. I think that's pretty much it for now. Oh, hang on. We've got a couple more things here I want to read out before we end this. Big Hair says, it would actually be hilarious if the Democrats reformed the Confederacy, though. Yeah, if Democrats seceded from the Union, and then whatever flag they used when they lose, you could always just say, well, we can't fly those anywhere because that would be traitors. Then Chad Washington says, the left is unfit for society. Well, the problem is, Chad, the left is in control of society. They run society. Yeah. I mean, in the vast majority of institutions, like education, and which is the big one. That is the big one. The media, etc. The ones that shape our perceptions of the world are run by people who are at least left-leaning, if not outright communists, which is unfortunate. And then Big Hair says it's the hierarchy of victimhood. Yes, the progressive stack, etc. The all the intersections, right? But anyway, who cares about that? Black Lives Matter. So I guess that's it. That was our first stream.
Yeah, congratulations.
You did a pretty good job. All right,
Good
guys,
stuff.
take it easy. Hope everybody had a good time watching this. Let us know in the comments when this is posted how you felt about it and things we can do to maybe make it a little bit better. So
Yeah, we're first timers, so we want to see what we can do better.
Appreciate the help, guys. Take it easy.